Tipp today, in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slattery'sGarage.ie.
Good morning, welcome along to Tipp Today, 1800 938 007. That's our free phone number if you want to give us a call. And Leanne is producing. Coming up on the show this morning, the Department of Justice is planning to pay a researcher €270,000 to write a history of the department. We'll discuss that in just a few moments' time. The President of the Irish Road Haulage Association joined us to talk about possible crisis action as fuel costs continue to rise. We have Senator Garda Hearn with us live in studio. Former US Air Force pilot and regular contributor to the show, Bernie Goldbach, will give us his analysis of the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. We'll be hearing from Lynch Solicitors on our legal slot. We'll hear about a new app and web platform that brings Clonmel's events, jobs and local businesses straight to your doorstep. And of course we will have more about your natural remedies as well. So all of that and more on the way. You can text and WhatsApp 083 311 3311. You can email tiptoday@tippfm.com. And our competition, because this week on Tipp Today we're giving away a €200 voucher for Mr. Menswear. So whether it's Debs, confirmations, communions, weddings or race day, you'll find the perfect suit, shoes and accessories in store in Cashler Care or online at mrmister.ie. To enter, all you have to do is listen out for the cue to call, which I'll give you in just a little while. At that point, send your name and your details, along with putting Mr. on your message to WhatsApp or text 083 311 3311. We'll select a finalist every day this week, and the winner will be announced on Friday. Let's have a look at the front pages of some of your newspapers today. The Irish Daily Mail, their lead story, and of course, needless to say, it's the story right across the newspapers today. Donald Trump last night claimed that the war in the Middle East was pretty much over. He said the American-Israeli operation launched 10 days ago was very far ahead of schedule. The Irish Independent, their lead story today, a massive malfunction on electricity smart meters over the weekend meant some households were told they had consumed thousands of euro worth of energy. Hundreds of thousands of people are understood to have been impacted by this big blunder. But one download from a smart meter told a householder, can you believe this, they had consumed close to €9,000 worth of electricity in the first week of March. Can you imagine the shock you'd get where that's concerned? To the Irish Examiner, and they're leading with the story that the Irish economy is facing an energy affordability crisis as households and businesses face soaring fuel bills as the war in Iran drags on. Also on the Examiner today, a murder trial has heard a Cork man accused of murdering his partner, including inflicting a stab wound that was 11.5 centimetres deep, told Gardaí she had stabbed herself. And also on the Examiner today, a mother spent the day outside of a Cork special school yesterday after her son was refused entry after it was reopened following its closure for longer than a week. The Irish Times, dominated by a photograph of a very sombre-looking Gerry Adams, and the story there, a barrister for Mr. Adams has told the High Court in London it was a logical fallacy to assume that he was a leading member of the IRA. Also on the Times today, Trump suggests war in Iran may end very soon. And finally on the Times today, the three leaders of the Kinahan drugs cartel have not left the United Arab Emirates for almost 4 years, Gardaí believe. They are cartel founder Christy Kinahan, senior, and his sons Daniel and Christopher Jr. So that's a look at what's making headlines today. If you'd like to make comment on any of that, we'd be glad to hear from you. And once again, the text and WhatsApp is 083 311 3311. Now, the Department of Justice is planning to pay a researcher €270,000 to write a history of the office, examining its key achievements over a 50-year period. Now, the research will be overseen by an advisory group comprising current or former officials, along with independent experts nominated by the department. Journalist Dara McDonough has been looking into this for the Irish Sun, and he joins me now. Good morning to you, Dara.
Good morning, Fran. How are you?
I'm well, and thank you so much for coming on with us today. The decision to write this book, where did that come from? What's behind all of this?
Well, look, the department rightly points to the vital role that it played around the years of the foundation of the state, Fran, in the early 1920s. Now, that period has already been the focus of much historical research, but unfettered access to the archives of the department could legitimately add to our shared understanding of that period, I suppose, and the state building that took place at that time. Because I suppose necessarily the department had a central role in, say, the establishment of the court system and the setting up of a police force in those early years of the state. So I suppose that's what's informed and inspired their decision to issue this tender.
You mentioned their access to the files, and would all files be made available, or would there be a certain sensitivity around some of them?
Well, I can only go on what is contained in the tender documents, Fran, but I thought it was interesting that the department said that the successful applicant would be afforded reasonable access to the department archives. So you can read into that what you will.
Yeah, and the researcher won't have complete jurisdiction over this, though, because of how it's going to be overseen. That's fair to say, isn't it?
Yeah, there's going to be an advisory group who are going to oversee the work of the researcher. Now, that will be composed of current and or former officials from the department, as well as some independent experts nominated by the department. Now, that advisory group will meet twice a year to review the work up to date of the researcher. And while I suppose the €270,000 is the carrot in this scenario, the stick is the contractual right that the department holds to unilaterally terminate the contract if the advisory group after any of its biannual meetings decides that they don't like what the researcher has come up with.
That's going to be very interesting indeed. The book itself, though, is it going to be some sort of a popular tome, or is it just for scholarly types and for research and the like?
Well, the tender goes in between those two things, I suppose, Fran, which is a difficult ask. It says it should be both. It should stand up to the rigours of academic scrutiny, but also should be readable and accessible enough to titillate the humble mind of an average reader such as myself. So it's not an easy task for whoever is successful in securing the contract.
There's aspects of it I'd be very interested in, Dara, particularly, I suppose, around the emergency, for example. You know, when there was the introduction of internment without trial, for example, and there was new censorship laws and all of that. So there are certain periods in that 50 years that would be particularly interesting.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Very interesting, Fran, but also extremely contentious.
Yes.
Because you have to remember that around the foundation of the state, the Department of Justice would have been central to one of the biggest controversies in our history. In the wake of the War of Independence and Civil War, and Tipperary was a hotbed for these events, of course, the first Minister for Justice, Kevin O'Higgins, is the minister who oversaw the execution of at least 77 prisoners of war between 1922 and 1923. Now, that is a controversy that divided families and communities for generations. So it's a history that really requires an impartial mind and a free hand. Now, is this set up whereby a researcher would be tempted by the €270,000, but would also be working, to borrow a phrase that's more appropriate from the time that they'll be studying, with a gun to their head, where the contract can be terminated if their benefactor doesn't like what they're coming up with? Is that really the way to get an impartial, independent and reliable history? I'm not so sure. Have there been attempts, Tara, to write about this in the past, or is it sort of included in general history of the state? General history and specialised as well. I mean, the foundation of An Garda Síochána is the subject of several books. Yes. So it has been extensively covered. But I suppose what the department will be offering I would assume, is a look at some materials that to date haven't been studied. But I mean, the question has to be asked. I don't think history is a discipline that requires subvention. If the department were to open its doors and invite a university or universities to come in and appraise the documentation that it has in its possession, if it's worthy of being documented and written about, it will be written about. Do they really need to pay a researcher and retain this degree of control over what will be produced? It's questionable, I think.
That's very interesting indeed. Where did they come up with the figure?
I'm not sure, friend, but the contract will run for 30 months. So that €270,000, I suppose, will cover the salary of the researcher for that period. And that will be followed by another 6 months of review and editing, which will lead up to, they hope, the publication of the history that the researcher has come up with.
Right. So are we looking at what? This time next year, possibly?
3 years before you can rush to your local bookshop.
Oh, 3 years. Oh, my God. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it'll be an extensive work, I think.
Well, it's certainly going to be very interesting to see what the outcome of that is going to be. Darragh, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you. Thank you. Good morning to you. That's journalist Darragh McDonough speaking to us there, journalist with the Irish Sun. What do you think about that? 270,000 to write a history of the department and the Department of Justice. Let us know. 083 311 3311.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puckon. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puckon. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Now, Thomas was on to us to say, a waste of money, if you ask me, Fran. Has the department not enough researchers to look at doing this rather than spend 270 grand? That could be put towards other stuff or given to homeless shelters, etc. The waste of money is unreal. I suppose what they'd say to you on that, Thomas, is that they want an element of an independent look, I suppose, at the department over those 50 years. By the way, it's just taking it up to 1968. So it will be from the beginning of the state right up to 1968. I'm sure it's something we'll get back to again. Senator Garrett Ahern, as you heard in news, has formally raised concerns regarding the decision by Tusla to discontinue funding for the St. Bernard's Therapeutic Fostering Support Service in Feathert following the agency's recent structural reforms. And I'm joined in the studio now by Senator Garrett Ahern. Good morning to you, Garrett.
Good morning, Fran. Good morning to your listeners.
Well, I have to put my hands up here and say I wasn't all that aware of this service. Would you just give us the background to the service and what it provides?
Yeah, no, well, a lot of people wouldn't be. So, because it's very specialised and St. Bernard's Children's Services predominantly provide support for children. But they have a service which is a fostering support service, which provides services for people in foster caring. And it's in Feathert, and it essentially, since 2014, provides services for people who want to get into foster caring, so parents who want to get into foster caring, and it provides services for the children who are in that foster caring. And people who get into foster caring or choose to do it, as far as I'm concerned, are saints. They do incredible work, but to do that work they need support. And we have the Irish Foster Care Association of Ireland, who do incredible work supporting foster carers across the country. But what we need on a local level is to be able to meet someone, get support, get advice on what to do during that time when you're caring for a foster child. And that's exactly what St. Bernard's does. It has a 2-year programme where it helps foster carers through the process of taking in a child, providing that support for them, particularly children who went through trauma. And most children who come into foster care, they've went through some type of trauma, whether it's mild trauma or deep trauma. And it's about supporting that new family network to make sure it's a success. And since 2014, 133 foster carers have went through that process. And this has been a huge benefit to the state, because if the state doesn't have these services, the cost per child to the state of providing that is 300,000 per child per year. It's a massive cost. And what St. Bernard's does in Fethard, led by the Director of Services, Roisin Stewart, and her team, is provide that services on a local level for foster carers across Tipperary and the wider region. So it's a critical piece of infrastructure for parents to be able to go to. It used to be a 24-hour service where you could ring at any point. That was up until the early 2020s, where you could ring at any point and get advice and get support. Now it's done on a 5-day basis. That was because of cutbacks in Tusla, but it's still a critical. It's still a critical service that's provided.
Why?
Now, there's a couple of things. So I've spoke to Tusla, and on Tusla's own mission statement, it says that any services that are removed or changed have to be provided somewhere else at an equal or better level. I've tried and failed to get confirmation from Tusla that this service will be provided somewhere else at the same or better level. They're talking about moving it to North Cork, but that has implications on foster carers in Tipperary. Some of the reasons they give just don't make any sense at all from my perspective. So to receive the service in St. Bernard's, you have to be referred. So you get referred by Tusla to go to St. Bernard's to receive this support and service. So one of the reasons they say is that only 50% of foster carers in the region take up the service. Now, there's a number of reasons for that, but the number one reason is Tusla refer someone to St. Bernard's. It's not like St. Bernard's go out to find.
They're in charge.
So when Tusla, exactly. Yeah. So when Tusla say that one of the reasons is that there's only 50% of foster carers using the service, well, that's a criticism of Tusla themselves not referring the service to St. Bernard's.
And when Tusla refers to these new networks as being the excuse as to why they're suspending this agreement with St. Bernard's, what new networks are we talking about there?
Well, they're talking about moving it to North Cork, but that, like as I said, that has an implication on all of the foster care services, foster care families in Tipperary in terms of transport, travelling, and one of the biggest things for a foster carer's family is continuity and stability, and part of that is the services you provide. So if you change those, change the people who are assisting you, who are helping you as a parent or you as a child, that has a real profound impact on the progression of that family. So that goes against Tusla policy, really, that you make changes that would be substantial changes like that. Some of the other reasons that Tusla are giving her in terms of cost, which doesn't stack up at all.
Well, they seem to be saying that there's going to be overlapping, because they speak about the new structure that your service would fall within one of the new networks covered by a different region.
Yeah, so
the semantics of that is even
like
sort of complex.
It sounds very like HSE type talk. But like, we have a service here that is working perfectly. It's had 133 foster families go through it. It gives support on a 5-day basis right on our doorstep for families, and constantly. And I'm sure you've had it on your show before, where we put out calls to encourage people to go into foster caring if they can. The state give financial supports for foster carers. We give regional supports and advice on people to do it. But we actually have to get parents to put their hand up and say, I'm willing to actually do this and I'm willing to help a vulnerable child. It's very hard to convince people in Tipperary to do that if we're taking services away. I can well imagine.
Pop on your headphones there, because we're going to hear from Anne, first of all, who is a foster parent. Good morning to you, Anne.
Good morning, Fran. How are you?
I'm well, and good to talk to you today, and thank you for agreeing to come on with us. Will you tell us about the importance of St. Bernard's, and indeed your thoughts on the notion that it's going to be suspended?
I will, of course, and thanks very much for giving us the opportunity to speak.
Welcome.
And thanks to Gareth Ahern for bringing forward the issues that we're having. Fostering is probably one of the most rewarding things that you can possibly do. It's also very, very complex, and it's difficult to explain to people the difficulties that arise within a fostering placement. So the services that you require are very often very specific, and they need people who really know what they're talking about. And the team in St. Bernard's really know what they're talking about. And this service has built up over the course of 12 years. we are feeding back to St. Bernard. They're feeding to us. All around support, keeping the child central all of the time. Children come into care, they're taken away from their families. And there's no point in taking a child away from their family unless you're going to help them. And this is the way we help them.
And you can only help them properly, I guess, and if you have this sort of support basis.
Well, you're looking at children who have suffered complex childhood traumas.
Yeah.
A lot of them. And complex childhood traumas, you don't parent a child like that the same way as you parent an attached child.
Sure.
So all of these relationships are based on attachments. And every bit of scientific evidence that there is around the world will point to the fact that relationships heal trauma. And what we're building here are relationships, trusting relationships, where a child can feel held and seen and understood.
And I know that it goes into the finer points as well of, therapeutic play and workshops and support groups and all of that sort of collaboration. And I think even carers have a full certified course in therapeutic foster care as well.
Well, that's the advantage of this program, is that, trained professionals train you to be a therapeutic parent. Then you bring that back to the child. And then they take the child into their service and they support the child within the family. And I'm talking about the entire family now, for a 2-year period. That often impacts maybe 2 or 3 placements in a foster home. And the children of the foster home as well. And the parents. And that in turn supports birth parents and everybody else. So it's a whole nurturing support system.
So the removal of the service then, Anne, where does that leave us?
Well, it leaves us staring into a big black hole, to be honest, Fran, because the things that TUSLA are saying that they're going to replace this service with are not even comparable to this service. So there is nothing there. And the team of people that we work with, they have spent 11 years building these relationships. And foster carers trust them. And that's what it's all about. And there's within that, there's a peer support service that keeps you in trust. So it's not like they just train you and then say, goodbye now, off you go. There's that touch-back service. And everything that happens with you as a foster carer then, it ripples out to other foster carers in the environment. Or in the locality, rather. So it's not just an individual service. It's a whole wraparound system. And it really, really works. And it's hugely cost-effective by comparison to other services. And you have to bear in mind as well that when children come into foster care, some of them have disabilities, some of them have trauma. All of those children are waiting on services that are not available from the HSE. So there is no speech and language. There is no occupational therapy. There is no therapy. There's no play therapy. There's all of those therapies that children are waiting for in the likes of CDNT and everything else, CAMS, all of those. Foster children are waiting on those as well.
Stay with me for just a moment, Anne. Garrett, you make the point yourself that the state is the corporate parent. What about the government's response to this?
See, this is the whole point. So the government are responsible for the care of the child. If we don't have people like Anne, and Anne spoke so well there, explaining the impact that it has on carers and particularly on the child. If we don't have carers who put their hand up, it's the state have to do it, and the cost to that is absolutely huge. So the central point of this is about care for a child. And in my work, you have an awful lot of cases and side cases, but I particularly, probably because I've got young children, I always think the ones that you really, really want to focus on are ones that are specifically about caring for children and particularly vulnerable children. And this is a prime case in Tipperary where we have a top-class service provided by a team in St. Bernard's led by Roisin Stewart, who are delivering a top-class service for a fraction of the cost of what it would be if either TUSLA were running it or the state were running it independently. And why would we make a decision to change that at a time when we always talk about how we're doing well economically as a country? Why would we change that? And why would we have that impact on each child to start up a new relationship somewhere else in a different area that has been developed over years and has been hugely successful?
Let's get another angle on this. Let's go to Lorraine. Lorraine, good morning to you.
Good morning.
And good to talk to you today. Lorraine, you adopted a little boy, Jake. Will you tell me about Jake, first of all, Lorraine?
Yep, he came into our care at 6 days old, and we started the adoption process in 2017, which was the same time that we started to do the course with St Bernard's.
And tell me about the importance of St Bernard's when you set out on your journey with Jake. How important was that to you?
Well, I think for Jake it was very important because at the time he had a social worker and a guardian ad litem that he didn't particularly have a very good relationship with. They didn't act in his best interest, as where St Bernard's he felt was his voice, and his worker at the time was called Samantha. She used to come out every Monday, and he called her his treat of the week.
It was that important to him. It was his highlight of his week.
Even to this day now, he talks about her with such high regard. They made a huge difference for Jake. She went to the Adoption Authority of Ireland as well with him.
And then you hear about what's proposed to happen. Well, it is in fact going ahead and happening where St Bernard's is concerned, that this service will be suspended. How do you feel about that, Lorraine?
Oh, devastated. I think Sister have completely lost touch with foster carers, because anybody who has used that service knows how important it is to us. You know, even though we did the course in 2017, we still go to the peer support now. We can pick up the phone to the staff there. They know all of the children. You know, they know the dynamics of your family. You're not talking to a stranger who doesn't know anything about the family setup. You know, you get the support of the other carers as well. And we recently attended a meeting in Kilkenny on the 27th of February with Tussler Management, and there was a number of foster carers there, and every single one has said this service needs to remain. We cannot have it removed.
And what was the response from the Tussler representatives to you on that day?
But they're reflecting on it. They'll get back to us as soon as possible. But I mean, time is ticking away. The staff have been given notice, you know, and this service will definitely result in foster carers leaving the system and placements breaking down and children going into residential care. We cannot lose this service.
And that notion of the services being available in North Cork or wherever.
There isn't one. They're talking about rolling out a programme that's done in conjunction with UCC. It doesn't offer a support worker coming into the house every week and supporting a child and a foster carer. I mean, when Jake used to be anxious, thinking his adoption was never going to happen, and Samantha would come in, they'd make slime, or, you know, they would do some kind of art, something every week to kind of encourage him and help him just get through that horrible time. And there's nothing like that. In fact, I don't think anywhere in the country has got the service that we've got in Feathered. It should be rolled out throughout the whole country.
But it's the calibre of people like Samantha who you referred to there, and that human element that's so important, obviously, Lorraine.
And they're so in touch with the children. They are completely child-centred.
It's incredible. And again, Garrett, I mean, you know, if something is working extremely well, why would you dismantle it?
Well, see, this is it, and this is why I raised it last week in the Shannon, and because none of it makes sense. And even the letter that was sent out to St Bernard's of the reasons why it's been done, absolutely none of it makes sense from a cost perspective. Like Lorraine speaks to her, and you can see even in the emotion of when she's speaking how much it means to her and how much it means to Jake. Like, this is a service, as Lorraine said, should be spread across the country, not a service that actually should be. And it's not been suspended, Fran. It's been terminated. Like, that's what's happening in April next month.
Right. I was quoting their language on this, but
like,
it's
been terminated from Federt. It's been terminated from our region here, which is just utterly unacceptable to the parents and particularly to the children of this region. And like, all it does is it causes fear, anxiety, worry for foster families about whether they can receive the same service that has been so successful for them to be able to raise wonderful children in a loving house.
And so you've looked into this. Is there any hope? Is there any hope that this might be reversed?
So I've written to TUSLA looking for answers. I haven't got the answers that have satisfied me.
Well, should you
yet.
go to the HSE then? Should you go to the department?
I'm actually going to the minister. So I've written to the minister, but I'm actually putting down a commencement matter in the Shannon next Wednesday with the minister. So commencement matter essentially is in the Shannon. You get an opportunity to bring the minister in, ask him the specific questions they have to answer, and I have an opportunity to reply to those answers in person in the Shannon. So I'm going to be calling on the minister to intervene in this, to look at the decision that was made by TUSLA. I'll outline, as I've tried to do here, but not as good as Anne and Lorraine have done, but to outline the reasons of why that service is just critically important to the families here in this region and why that needs to be reversed. We're talking about a very, very small amount of money for a service that is invaluable to the people in Tipperary.
But wouldn't it be wonderful if Lorraine and Anne joined you in meeting the minister? I mean, how powerful would that be?
Absolutely. That's exactly what we should do. And the minister, if she's open to it, is Minister Norma Foley, who has responsibility in this area. If she's open to meeting and discussing it, like, all we want is to make sure that the best available service is there for children who are in foster caring. We have that at the moment in Federt, but TUSLA have decided to change it. And all I'm trying to do is highlight the real anxiety and pain this is causing families right across the country.
And can I go to you just for a final word from you, Anne, where this is concerned? What do you have to say to us as a final word on this?
Well, I just think that what everybody is speaking about there is that vulnerable children in care who are already hurt, and all we're trying to do is to help them. Now, in respect of this service, TUSLA have a communication charter with us in which they state that they will include us when they're making decisions around what affects us. And the issue with this is the underhand way in which the whole service was pulled. We got a letter at the beginning of February. I believe St. Bernard's got the letter at the beginning of January. And the service is to terminate at the end of March. So that's a 3-month notice from start to finish. We weren't notified in any way. We weren't asked. We weren't communicated with. The children who used the service weren't asked, weren't communicated with. There was a decision made in isolation of everybody who uses the service that the service was going to be axed. Now, if they had have even come and asked us, we could have explained. And they know already, because we had been meeting with the lead for TUSLA in the weeks preceding this, telling her how important this service was to people in our area. And it's Carlow, Kilkenny, South Tipperary. So it affects 3 counties. And as a matter of interest, there was another service pulled in Waterford, Wexford, who did a similar kind of thing, but not quite as... It didn't give the children the support that St. Bernard's did. The St. Bernard's service should be replicated and rolled out to every area all over Ireland. And if every foster region had a service like this, you wouldn't have problems recruiting foster carers. You certainly wouldn't have to spend €150 million on advertising. The €150 million that the minister is proposing to advertise to try and get people to foster, if they put it into supporting foster carers that exist today, foster carers will fill your system. We will tell other people how wonderful it is.
Right, but you need the backup. Lorraine, can I go to you for a final word on this, Lorraine?
Well, I think Anne's pretty much to cover it all, but I think for what I would like to say is there's only 6 staff at St. Bernard's. Every time you're looking for anything from TUSLA, you keep getting quoted about the public purse. And I actually couldn't think of money better spent from the public purse than to reinstate St. Bernard's, and it needs to be done by the end of this month. And we need to continue with the service. We cannot lose it. The children, this is vital for a lot of children. So many placements break down. The support they give is just fantastic. We need to fight to keep this service.
Well, you're both two wonderful advocates indeed, and thanks to Lorraine and Anne for your contribution to the conversation this morning. Just wonderfully passionate, eloquent.
Yeah, well, look, and can I just thank you, Fran, and Leanne as well for allowing Anne and Lorraine to come on, because as much as I can explain it, the lived experience is what really resonates. And I hope people who are listening to the show this morning can really see how a service that they mightn't be aware of is having such an impact on families in Tipperary and the region of South Tipperary, Carlow, Kilkenny. And when we talk about how this decision was made without any involvement of the parents, it was made essentially without any involvement of Irish Foster Care Association as well, who do great work. But they had no involvement or discussions with TUSLA on it either. So look,
the impression often is that TUSLA is a law unto itself, Gareth.
It's incredibly frustrating. But this is a prime example of where all of the reason they've outlined of why this decision has been made can be just knocked out entirely by facts. And whether they talk about the amount of people who go through the service, that's responsibility on them. Whether they talk about costs, their own costs are more. I don't have the permission to talk about the exact funding figures, but essentially, if TUSLA take this over, they're going to be providing a service which is of less quality for more money.
Which is ridiculous.
Which is absolutely ridiculous and makes no sense. So I'll work over the next couple of weeks to try and put as much pressure on the Minister, work with the Irish Foster Association to try and put as much pressure as we can and try and get those lived experiences of what a really good service is being provided here in Tipperary should be continued, and actually, as Lorraine and Anne said, should be rolled out in other areas across the country.
All right, thanks for coming in to us, Gareth. Thank you and good morning to you. That's Senator Gareth Hearn with us this morning, and thanks to Lorraine and Anne for their wonderful contributions to the conversation as well. We'll take a break, back in just a moment.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1-800-938-007.
The Irish Road Haulage Association President Ger Hyland has confirmed that a protest planned for this evening in Dublin has been suspended pending the outcome of talks with the Transport Minister Darragh O'Brien. Ger Hyland joins me now. Good morning to you, Ger.
Morning, friend. Thanks for having us on.
Well, you're welcome, and good to talk to you today. I know you held crisis talks over the weekend. You went so far as to say that the industry faces collapse, Ger, and you said, and you accused the government, in fact, of price gouging and profiteering from motorists where the tax take on fuel is concerned.
Absolutely. The big winner in all of this is the government. Certainly the fuel companies and the fuel suppliers have questions to answer here also. But the big winner here is the government. Like, the government is taking 65 cents a litre out of every euro you spend on petrol. They're taking 60 cents a litre from every euro you spend on diesel. So as current as the fuel stays rising, the tax take that our government is taking is more and more. So I suppose, for want of a better word, it suits them to see the cost of fuel rising.
Right, so are you saying that even before this, the whole thing has been dysfunctional and this is just adding to that?
Absolutely. And last January, the cost that the government has imposed on our industry since last January alone, never mind the fuel crisis here, is phenomenal. I'll just give you a quick example. Our tolls went up in January. They put another green tax on fuel. They call it a better energy levy, and with VAT included, it's 6 cents a litre went on fuel in January. It was snuck in. There was nothing about it. We had the auto enrolment, and we had the minimum wage, which affects every wage level as you go up along. Like, your local haulier, 36% of his turnover is going in direct government taxes. And the majority of that is his fuel.
And is it a case that, is it a case that this government doesn't get the importance of the transport industry and the core parts that it plays in everything?
And well, that's the feeling that we're getting. We feel that our government is not listening to us. We have a track war to Leinster House about road tolls, about the cost of insurance, about the cost of fuel, and we've got absolutely nothing back. This government, well, not this government, but over the last couple of governments, they've taken €1 billion off our sector on carbon tax. And we have absolutely nothing to show for that. They're using that money to retrofit houses and whatever else. That's fine. Houses probably have to be retrofitted. But our industry is looking for help here to go green. We were looking for a subsidy here to help us to buy HBO, which is the hydrated vegetable oil. Nothing forthcoming. Only tax upon tax upon tax. So last Saturday morning, we had a meeting in Bracetown in our head office, just outside Dublin there, outside Blanchardstown. We've never had as well attended a meeting, but the anger and the frustration in that room last Saturday morning was palpable. It really was. I've never seen members so exasperated. They're just facing into an abyss here that they cannot stay going. Yesterday, fuel is down somewhat this morning, I believe. I haven't seen any fuel reports yet, but I believe it's down a small bit this morning. But yesterday we had members paying 40 cents a litre more than they were paying here 2.5, 3 weeks ago. That is unsustainable.
What had you intended?
In Ireland now,
it's
about 30 cents a litre cheaper than down here.
And that leads to other problems, of course.
That leads to other problems.
The protest planned for this evening, what had you planned to do this evening, and why did you suspend it?
Our protest was planned for 5 o'clock this morning. We were meeting in Dublin this morning at 5 o'clock. That was our protest. And there was hauliers coming from all corners of Ireland, including Tipperary and Cork and Limerick and everywhere else. And our plan was to bring that city to a standstill today. That was the plan. And we got a phone call yesterday evening. I got a phone call yesterday evening from the Minister of Transport, Darragh O'Brien, who happens to be in Brazil on government business. He's back here in this country this Thursday evening. And he has offered me a meeting early next week. And look, I've said to him, there's no point in having a meeting about a meeting. And he said, no, there will be something on offer. So I'll take that at face value. And
right, but did he not already come out and say, Ger, that he wouldn't look at something like the carbon tax, for example, that there'd be no question of looking at that? So you'd wonder what he's going to offer you.
Well, look, I will facilitate that meeting, and hopefully we can come to an agreement. Darragh O'Brien hasn't said, or Minister O'Brien hasn't said that he won't do anything on the carbon tax. There was other ministers come out there and said that the last thing they would do is look at the carbon tax. So, look, it'll have to be a government decision. But when I come out of that meeting next week, unless I have concrete proposals to help our industry, we will be on the street.
So what is the least? What is the least guarantee you would take from the minister that would stop you and your followers to go and protest in the way that you've told us about?
Well, now that the minister has offered us a meeting, we have our own management meeting of the IRHA on Wednesday in Dublin, and we will devise exactly what we will accept and what we won't accept at that meeting.
And can you give us any indication of what?
Number one, we're looking for the M50 free to our members, to our licensed haulage sector. We're providing an essential service here. We're not up and down the M50 for the sport of it. It's costing us almost €8 now every time we go under that toll reader on the M50. So for some of our members, we're crossing that M50 6 and 8 times every day. And I'll give you an example. There's a transport company on the Limerick-Tipperary border. I'm not going to name them, but there's a transport company on the Limerick-Tipperary border. They're paying over 20,000 a month in road tolls. And that was before the road toll increase in January. These companies, they're based in rural Ireland. They're probably the only employer in their parishes. And they need to be supported. They just cannot stay going with the level of tax. The government is taking 36% off every haulier in Ireland in direct taxes. There is no other industry in this country taxed to the same level as the transport industry because of the fuel we're using and the amount of tax that's taken off of fuel.
There's some precedent for what you're looking for because after the outbreak of the Ukraine war, there was help and supports there, was there not?
There was help and supports there, and we were very glad of it. But our problem now is that we're heading into the third week of this conflict in the Gulf. And our fuel has never been as expensive. And it was rising on a daily basis until this morning. Who knows where it's going to go tomorrow or what's going to happen. But there has to be some sort of a trigger put in place when fuel reaches a certain level that there is a way of dealing with it, that we don't be back here again fighting in a couple of years' time or whenever something happens.
The only thing I'd say to you about your planned protest, and I'd love your opinion on this, people might have sympathy with a cause, but if you bring a city to a standstill, you're affecting ordinary people who are trying to go about their daily lives, and that annoys them. I'm not sure if that does good for a cause.
No, I would agree with you there, but what I will say to you there is we haven't put the threat on the table lightly. We've been talking about the cost that's been imposed on our sector for the last couple of years, and nobody has been listening to us. As I've said to you, we've been in and out of Leinster House for different meetings with different ministers, and we have absolutely nothing to show for it. We've paid €1 billion in carbon tax with absolutely not one red cent back to our industry. Our vehicles now are about 60% dearer than they were 10 years ago when the carbon tax started, and we have no support from government.
Right, but Jerry, you would have passed on some of those costs to your customers, of course.
We would have passed on some of them, but we can't pass on all of them. There's a huge kickback. All our customers are under pressure now, the same as ourselves. And there is a huge kickback from customers on rates at the present time and not to put up rates. But you were saying about the general public being discommoded. The general public at the present time are in the same position as ourselves. They can no longer afford to put fuel in their cars either. So they can no longer afford to pay the road tolls. Like, you have nurses and doctors and everyone else in between travelling up and down that M50 around Dublin every day, spending 2 and 3 hours of time sitting in traffic on that M50. And then you roll up to the toll booth and you pay, for our members, you pay €8 for the privilege. So, it's gone now. It's not fit for purpose.
All right, Ger, well, we'll follow the story. We'll leave it there for now, though. Thanks for your time this morning. Thank you. Good morning to you. That's Ger Hyland there of the Irish Road Haulage Association. How do you feel about that? We'd love you to share with us. 1800 938 007. The text and WhatsApp is 083 311 3311. No August and all chucked.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puckon. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24111.
Really good Pat, welcome along to the second hour of Tip Today, 1800 938 007. Now, some of your text and WhatsApp, this is making reference to my conversation with Garrett Hearn and Lorraine, and with Anne as well, about St. Bernard's in Feathert. Listen said, did they learn nothing from the mess the HSE made when they herded all of us into Limerick, where the services were not provided? I presume you're referring to UHL there. Listener goes on to say, Tusla, with their reputation for messing things up, are going down the same road. Please don't let it happen. Another listener on to say, Fran, this is just the same way that family carers are being treated, and everybody in the country knows that the government treats them very badly indeed. It's the carers that are saving the state millions, and are always the ones that are hit the very hardest as well. Another listener saying the department's spending taxpayers' money, and they should spend the money on children with special needs. It would be better spent and on young carers as well. And that's making reference to the first story we had on the programme this morning, that the Department of Justice is planning to pay a researcher €270,000 to write a history of the office over a 50-year period from, 1918 up to 1968. But a lot of people want to say they believe that to be a waste of money. Anyway, 083 311 3311. Kevin McSherry, the owner of Open Season in Nina, made headlines last year when he began to highlight issues surrounding bus stops in the Nina area. Now, a year on, nothing has changed where the buses are concerned, but Open Season has decided to utilise all the attention in a humorous way. Kevin McSherry joins me now. Good morning to you, Kevin.
Good morning, Fran. How are you?
I'm well, and lovely to talk to you again. Would you just tell us about the saga around the bus stops, and when were they installed in the town anyway, Kevin?
I suppose it's over a year ago. We got a whole new one-way system and essentially 2 new bus stops. So the buses travelling to Dublin stop outside Rocky's Bar, and the ones going south towards Limerick and Cork stop outside Ryan's Pharmacy opposite the AIB corner.
Right, but they're bus stops, but you're saying to me there's no bus shelters. Is that it? Yeah,
and I can't get the exact figure, but there was a building purchased to facilitate the new one-way system in Nina to accommodate the bus stops. So there was a lot of money spent implementing the plan, and I think it runs into the millions. But after a bit of investigation, most people in Nina, I think it would be fair to say, they really wanted the bus stops to be located at the train station in Nina,
right, so
where you could have rain shelters, and there was a great plan to put a commuting park down there at the railway station. There's loads of car parking. There was to be a bicycle park, possibly a coffee shop. And obviously the train pulls in there as well, and there's loads of parking and turning spaces for the buses. But the NTA, from what I can find out from our local politicians, the NTA vetoed that plan and insisted that the buses had to leave from the town centre. But as anyone who knows Nina knows well, the train station is in the town centre. It's as simple as that.
Well, not quite, Kevin. I mean, it would be quite a bit of a walk out to the... I mean, on a rainy day now, it would be a walk out to the train station, wouldn't it?
Well, if you're going to get the bus from outside Ryan's Pharmacy, you're going to have to walk there one way or the other. But if you were to get the bus to Dublin rather than drive, you could drive your car into the train station, leave the car there, and then get the bus.
Right, so that as a hub.
And speaking about getting wet, if you come into town like I do at 7 o'clock on winter mornings, you'll see people standing actually outside your office where I am at the moment here in Nina. You'll see people sheltering from the wind and the rain it's like something out of a third world country.
That's right.
trying to keep themselves dry.
I see it every morning. I'm up there, in fact. And you're
And
also...
Can I just say to you, I'm sitting here in your chair at your desk where you usually are, with all the knobs and buttons in front of me here. And Paul Carroll has warned me not to play with them because he said I could shut down Tipp FM in an instant. So I'm terrified here.
You need to be very careful. What is this thing as well about coaches arriving at the same time, and that's causing consternation?
Yeah, and so we have the bus stop outside your office. It's just about long enough for 1.5 buses to pull in. And I can't believe that somebody in the NTA or in the engineering section thought that that was long enough. So what happens is one 52-seater pulls in, and when a second one arrives behind it, it has nowhere to go. It has to pull up, and it's forced to pull up with the tail of the bus blocking the zebra crossing.
Wow.
Now, as far as I know, if you or I were to park our car on top of a zebra crossing...
It's illegal, of course.
It's illegal,
yes.
and... It's not alone is it illegal. I think you can get a couple of penalty points for it, but I could be wrong about that. I haven't had time to check, but it's definitely illegal to pull up a car on top of a zebra crossing. So to think that we created a plan that involved buses having to pull up over a zebra crossing, and I know that there's a retailer here on the street who has a health and safety report done on this, and his health and safety people said it's an appalling risk to have it designed in the way it is.
Well, that's very serious. You also said that what the project didn't reflect what the people of the town actually wanted. Do you know that from speaking to people sharing with you?
Yeah, from talking to people, my own son was using how I got interested in this. My own son was going to UL before he started to drive a couple of years ago. So I'd be coming into Nina early in the morning before we got the new bus system. And people were still standing in the rain, cold weather, windy and wet, getting drenched before they got on the bus, including my own son. Now, he was lucky because I'd drive him in, I'd wait with him in the car until the bus arrived, and he'd jump out and jump on. But there was 30, 40 people in the morning standing getting wet. Now, we listen to the government and they tell us that they want people to use public transport. But if you get drenched waiting for the bus, how would you encourage people to use that public transport? So it's a very badly joined up thinking, I think. And again, I'd say what I think this bus stop symbolises for me is this thing, what they call democratic deficit. All our local politicians, councillors and TDs are in favour of the buses being located at the railway station. Now, they're representative of the people, but I think all our local representatives want the bus stop at the railway station, and that's what the people want. But that's not what the people are getting. We're being told by a quango in Dublin called the NTA that the buses have got to pull up on the street. And I know actually what caused me to pursue this a bit further was our local paper of record, the Nina Guardian, when I brought up the original TikTok video last year. It got a very good response, and the Nina Guardian covered the story, and I've double checked with the Guardian yesterday. They approached the NTA for a comment about the bus stop situation in Nina, and the NTA didn't even have the courtesy to answer their query. So not alone, they didn't even say no comment, they just said nothing. And
did you try to get an answer back through local representatives from the NTA, for example?
I don't know that. I did have local representatives, Alan Kelly, for example, speak to me about it, but I know that they're lobbying the whole time, the NTA. But I again, democratic deficit, this is what the people want, but the NTA are telling us we can't have it.
Right, so you've decided then to highlight the issue through satire and through a song.
I think so, yes, because what else can we do? Only laugh when we're faced with the absurd.
Tell me about the song and how that came about.
So, well, it comes about because when the Guardian asked the NTA for a comment, they just said nothing. Like traditionally, an organisation would say no comment, but they didn't even have the courtesy to say that. So I said if they wanted to say nothing, we might try and shine a better light on the issue and just highlight it even more.
Very
rather than
good.
just go away.
And do you have this song up on social media at the moment? Is this?
Yeah, it should just have gone up this morning.
All right, okay. Yeah, we'll give it a listen, and then I'll come back to you. So will you hang on with me for a moment, Kevin?
I will, of course.
This is I think it's called the Open Season song, is it?
The open season bus stop song, we like to call it.
All right, let's have a listen.
It's official, Lonely Planet says it's so. If you're traveling in 26, then Tipp's the place to go. But if you're an eco-warrior or cutting your carbon print, don't come to Ireland, our bus stops are badly built. We got the GAA, the IFA, GPA and TMA, but our own goal winner is the Dublin NTA. Experts on all things transport, only they haven't got a clue about what it's like to get soaked wet when standing in a queue, spending lots of money and going nowhere fast. It just keeps on raining and they keep getting fat. We got the GAA, the IFA, GPA and TMA, but our own goal winner is the Dublin NTA. When 26 make the trip to Tipp, forget New York, Paris, Rio and Rome. The hidden smile inside the Emerald Isle, Dan Breen and McGowan called it home. We got the GAA, the IFA, GPA and TMA, but our own goal winner is the Dublin NTA. So if you're touring Malin to Mizzen or Doonbeg Bay to Malahide, if you jump off the bus at Nina Castle, beware the NTA zebra crossing, beware the NTA zebra crossing. It could be holiday suicide. We got the GAA, the IFA, GPA and TMA, but our own goal winner is the Dublin NTA. We got the GAA, the IFA, GPA and TMA, but our own goal winner is the Dublin NTA.
Oh, well done, Kevin. Well done. Well done. That's going to be in my ear the whole day now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. It's been in mind for a number of months.
Brilliant. I didn't realise you. So you sing and play, obviously, as well.
No, I don't. But we have some willing culprits and volunteers to help.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
it's absolutely brilliant. You're going to put a bit of a video up with that as well.
We have a video to go with it, so if you look up openseason.ie on Instagram, TikTok or Facebook, we have a little video to accompany it as well. And I'd like to could I mention too, my cameraman Claudio Fage, who does all my social media, TikTok videos and recordings and filming, and without Claudio, we wouldn't be able to create very much at all. So I have the ideas, and he puts them into into reality.
Well, they're very good ideas, and well done to you. And I'm sure the song is going to prove very popular. But in the meantime, as you say, people will continue to get wet unless we sort this out.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Good to talk to you, Kevin. My best to you. Thanks very much. Thank you. Bye-bye to you. Now, that's Kevin McSherry there of Open Season in Enid. A wonderful shop if you're into outdoor stuff. You will love it to bits. We'll take a break. Before I do, though, let me just go to a text in here. I agree there should be shelters for passengers travelling on buses. Most of us travelling on buses have no cars, where the bus stops for years works for most of us that have to walk to the railway stations too far away. Well, that's the point I was making to Kevin, that from the centre of town, it is quite a bit of a traipse down to the railway station. So maybe shelters might be what's required. Same in Cashel. 12 years looking for bus shelters in Cashel town, one of the main towns between Cork and Dublin. National and local link buses and a major tourist town, and still no shelters, no proper shelters. People have to stand in all types of weather. That comes in from Martin Brown, former Sinn Féin TD in Cashel. 1800 938 007.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, puck on. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Well, the US President Donald Trump yesterday predicted the war in the Middle East could be over soon, even as Iran's hardliners staged a show of loyalty to the new supreme leader in a sign that the country was not prepared to back down anytime soon. Former US Air Force pilot and digital transformation specialist Bernie Goldbach, regular contributor to us, is with me in studio. Good morning to you, Bernie.
Morning, Fran.
You spoke to me last week shortly after the conflict began. Have you a clearer picture of where this conflict is going and what the exit strategy might be at this point?
That's a loaded question. I'm sure everyone's asking that around the world. I think it's like when you're making the roads as you go along, the roads can go wherever they want to go. I mean, people make fun of the Irish planning process or like the government concept of meeting targets. This is worse in that there's real death happening, and it's like a video game being played out as for explosive effects and performative moments on air. But nobody who has a talking point memo seems to have the same talking point memo of where we are, how we got here, and where it's going. It's a bit of a mess, and it's affecting everyone who's listening. I mean, the fuel prices are happening. It's going to affect products that come to shops. It's a massive mess.
It sounds like a small thing, but have you any problem with the language that's being used around the conflict? You know, bombing the crap out of them, turning them to toast. It's kind of, it was described to me yesterday as sort of mob-type language.
Well, it appeals to the base of people who elected Donald Trump and also to the minions that support him. They're all in that same mindset, friend. And it's like bar talk that you could easily hear around the inner circle of Washington, D.C. interns and staff assistants.
So it's very deliberate.
I think so. It reflects to me that many of the people who would have been from the Department of State, or maybe some people involved in high-level military offices, have been vacated, they've been moved aside, and if there was any kind of a war plan, I think it's subordinated to the news moment, the newscast moment. We need, from the point of view of the Executive Office of the United States, they need to make sure that messages come from the president, from his golf course, from his Mar-a-Lago, and not from the Trump-Epstein files. That's important. Secondly, there has to be a moment of chaos that people can turn to the White House to believe that they'll lead the nation through this chaos, and potentially a way to secure the upcoming elections so that the chaos can continue, so that people it's more difficult to vote before the polls close. I think that's the master strategy, actually. Keep the news, coming from only the White House because it's performative. Interesting videos, lots of explosions, backing track that suggests Top Gun. And then a little bit of pause that people would have about, we need to secure the country, especially the voting. So let's make it as tough as possible to get into those voting polls in November.
Certainly shades of 2003 where that is concerned. Is it coming up with a reason for a war that isn't really a reason?
That's always been the unfortunate lesson of people misbehaving. And I remember watching the premise for weapons of mass destruction being laid out, watching on a RT television moment. I figured, okay, the specialists know more than what they're telling the public, but that all proved to be true. I mean, here it's worse. I don't even know if the specialists know what they've got in front of them. They make it up. And that's my impression. I mean, I used to help people process intelligence briefings. I'd receive them myself, flying big aircraft in with loads of munitions and troops, and you needed to know what was true and what was false. So I have no idea what the leading edge of the people are getting. I mean, the targeting information, a lot of it's being generated by AI, Fran. And people have been told, follow that, and follow the second salvo that the first salvo had as a result of the first salvo's effectiveness and the lethality of the explosion. So there's a lot of things happening here from the point of view of how much it's costing. Some people are saying $1 billion a day. Lots of very expensive missiles are being thrown up in the air to stop small drones. It's causing some parts of the world to be told the Americans are going to move munitions and fighter planes away from you, South Korea. So shut up, and it's going to happen. So America's moving around pieces on the chessboard right now that I'm not sure were in the war plans. I mean, I didn't do that part of the war plan. I did a different one when I worked in the Pentagon. But this is like made up as it goes along.
Is this Netanyahu's agenda, and how does that differ from the American agenda? Or what? I just can't get my head around that.
I'm not sure anybody can. I think that Netanyahu Bibi has learned to placate Trump in such a way that Trump thinks he looks strong. From the point of view of the Israelis, it's an existential threat when Iran exists as a country. It's a theocracy. It's not a place that you'd want to live, and that's why 5 Iranian footballers took asylum in Australia recently. Everybody knows since the Shah was deposed, since 1979, things have gotten tough for the average Iranian living in the country. But they've also gotten tough for Israel because the Iranians are clever. They have a lot of weapons, and they have controlled little tribal influences that are loyal to the church. It's like if Ireland of the times of the early 1900s or the 1800s simply followed the Pope and the bishops, did everything, and they also had the Irish Defence Forces armed to the teeth, that would be like what's happening because people trust the local cleric. They are surrounded by Israel, by the Revolutionary Guard for making sure you behave, cover your face, don't show your skin, and that's life. And it's tough. It's repressive, and it's abhorrent. Which is why a lot of people in the Western world say, "Well, let's get rid of that." It's so tough to do.
But it's multi-ethnic.
Yes,
and I'm not sure that people understand that fully.
No, and I mean it's like everybody who came to Ireland on a refugee status had their own armed detachments and their own churches and their own types of food. It's a different world, radically different world, 20 kilometers from another tribal enclave. And that's complex. I'm not sure Trump understands that. He thinks you can kill one person and decide who's the second person that's going to lead the country. It's not that simple.
It's not, and seemingly you can't, and this is your sphere of experience, you can't topple a regime without putting in soldiers. So at one stage or other then he was talking about funding the Kurds to go in and with boots on the ground. Now he seems to have backed away from that again.
Yeah, well, I think someone might have whispered in his ear, that didn't work well in Afghanistan. It didn't work well in Libya.
Well, we still have the fallout from that. Yeah.
No, this is never, if you're not a student of political science or international affairs, that's my degree, and you haven't looked behind the scenes at all the various things that can happen, I am not sure he believed the stock market would be affected by his crazy concepts of where we are, and that fuel prices would go up. I don't think he believed it would. And now that he says, well, it's worth the sacrifice. Think, well, you weren't elected for the worth the sacrifice mantra. It was, I'm going to bring prices down. It's contrary to that. So right. I think he wants to be a person who solves a problem by creating a problem. He wants to go down in history as a stronger president with more firepower than Ronald Reagan. I believe in his narcissistic mind, that is what he sees as his vision and his legacy. And that's dangerous.
And you have experience of the Reagan administration. So how make a comparison for me there?
Well, Reagan, when he said something, it was normally in the back of somebody. When he says, tear down this wall, for example. I mean, that was my op plan. That was 4307. That's the replenishment and the reinforcement of Germany and Berlin. So tear down this wall, we would have had all kinds of scenarios pre-planned. We would have moved portable hospitals in location if it went hot. But on the back of him being very forceful and believable, the amount of intelligence that leaked to the Russians and to the Stasi was that the Americans are armed to the teeth, and they're leaning in on this. So we need to listen to what they're saying and maybe give way. So when the wall started to crumble, the Russians were not going to respond because they knew I was there. We had pre-positioned enough stuff to make a really quick result happen. And that, but didn't happen. And I think because of the leaks that naturally occurred about why Americans are bringing hospital and medical supplies close into an area that had no conflict. That raises a lot of alarm bells. We were getting people that were practicing surgeons and physicians that were in the reserve officer corps into Germany. Had so real people on the ground able to perform complex operations required for a soldier that got injured, plus the facilities. Now, those facilities are still in country in Germany. Amazing. Hospitals are ready to go. It take 2 days to bring them up. And that's how armed to the teeth / ready to go. There's nothing like that in the Arab states to support boots on the ground, Fran. Nothing. You'd be talking about an Aerovac plane, an airborne hospital landing every 30 minutes to evacuate people. And then where would you go? Where would you land them?
And where would you land? I mean,
look,
it's such a huge space, isn't it?
It's crazy.
And historically, over the last while, I've been reading into the history of Iraq and the attempts to subdue that country in some way. They've all failed miserably.
No, it's not going to work. That's why it'll end when he says it ends. So he'll declare victory and walk away. That's what I think is going to happen. And then the stock market will stabilize. But the Iranians have good memory, saying you killed our kids.
Well, that's the point. And the post-war, in terms of maybe cells around the world and their response to what happened, there'll be huge bitterness.
Okay, you can launch an Israeli ballistic missile from the Gulf of America and destroy Mar-a-Lago. There's no protection for that. No shield of America is going to protect against that. So a speedboat, and I know the type of vehicle could do this. He's going to potentially face serious damage to his trusted gold jewels. The Secret Service cannot put up there's no Patriot mysticism around Florida.
So you would be afraid of retaliation post-war?
I believe it'll be a massive moment, and there'll be flags at half-staff, and the world will mourn the passing of. But I think something he trusts, he loves, some building with his name on it, anywhere in the world, plus his personal residence will be attacked with lethality. That's what I believe.
That's a big claim, Bernie.
No, I know, but that's what I mean. The people that I knew there, I mean, these are, America is such an easy target now for being rude. So you reward that with jihad, and there are jihadists that are ready to go.
So is it fair to say that you believe that the world will be less safe following this?
Yes, because nobody trusts the American big stick anymore. I don't, it'd probably be the French nuclear shield. We're entering a space now of mass chaos. We didn't have to be this way.
And the power of Israel in terms of its influence over the states. I mean, Netanyahu was able to bypass Trump and get direct to Congress, for example, to address them. What is that all about? People here find it very hard to get their head around that.
I mean, it's the power of the lobbyists, the respect of the Mossad, the intelligence briefings that somebody from Israel can give to a prominent senator that takes that prominent senator to a higher level of understanding what's happening than the Secretary of Defense. That's one thing that's happening. When I worked in the Pentagon, you'd watch people moving around the building. They were respected not only by the type of suit they had, lovely tailoring, but, geez, the stuff that was in their briefcases. I mean, they could show you stuff that, statistical analyses. They could show you price points. They could show you pivot points. And if you're working with a voluminous war plan, and someone could tell you how you could reduce 20% of that to a faster result. I mean, my stuff is real simple. It's like looking at the type of rollers that were on these palletized systems. And if somebody came in and said, look, we can guarantee you 100% reliability across 20 airdrops with this one new technology with these rollers. And they're simple things that are analog devices. You'd say, yeah, let's get a look at that. Then you run around to the Army, because it was their vehicles you were throwing out the back of the plane. They'd agree to give away some of their budget to this thing because they become more lethal. So all that stuff is happening sometimes based on a simple lobbyist that does that. And if the devices were manufactured in South Carolina and Lindsey Graham wins because a very highly valued product was being manufactured in South Carolina, everybody wins. The military wins, the Israeli win because they have influence, and now a local area that makes the product, the metallurgical product, wins.
We often see movies, read books about the psyche of American soldiers when they found themselves in situations where the huge loss of American life for pointless outcomes. Is this similar to that? Is this pointless?
And I feel for the parents and the kids and the spouses left behind who have to process all this, wondering, okay, why is she there? What are they doing?
Yeah.
Because I mean, how do you parse that? So inside of military installations, it's very patriotic, and they listen to the commander in chief's face as well as Secretary of Defense's face as well as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs face. These things are like in the places where you eat your pizza, where you go for the community activities, where you buy your newspapers. It's just burnt into the curriculum, burnt into the living, the lifestyle. You see the face of the people, then you learn to trust and revere them. And it's hard for you to change tack and say, we're being misled. But when Trump won't answer the question, was that your Tomahawk that destroyed that kid's school and all those girls that were killed? He won't even answer that question. New York Times did. They said it was a Tomahawk that was not launched by the Israelis because we were looking at their salvos. It was launched by an American. And then you break it down and say, well, how? And I'm speculating that the AI used was using an old photo mosaic, and it picked a building that was too close to a Iranian naval building, and assumed they were both in the same property and under the same jurisdiction because they looked the same, and they just assumed that's the supplementary ancillary building. And that happened because there's no human intelligence on the ground to validate the photo mosaics. So we used to fly people into places like the Brits did to France during World War II, drop off one or two people, and they would be, trained multilingual field intelligence officers. In this case, it would have been Iranian.
But I thought the Israeli security force, Mossad, had huge intelligence on the ground.
Yeah, but you see what happened in one sweep last 6 months. Hegseth has replaced targeting with autonomous field imaging. And that hasn't resonated yet. Autonomous field imaging with the weapons packaging and the immediacy of relaunch, all in the processing. He's taken the human out of the middle because they were too slow. So he's reduced the number of field intelligence officers, trained people that would use these magnifying glasses to look at what they're seeing, and said, no, if your first strike was successful with this at them, no, you weren't intercepted. Launch the second one on the second and a tertiary target. That's being automated, Fred. I mean, it's a tragedy, and it's unfolding now inside Silicon Valley because Anthropic provided some of that. Now OpenAI is going to provide some of that, and there's these battles going on about, wait a minute, should we allow artificial intelligence to do that kind of targeting? Now, I don't know if that's going to come out in a congressional hearing about why was that building hit for the girls' school. Was AI used to target or validate the target or launch the sequence? That's a big problem.
Will war continue? What about Lebanon now? You see, there's so many facets to this, and Hezbollah. Will they continue to fight with Israel? Will that continue?
Because I mean, there's no. You got to pay these people off, in my mind. Okay, so stuff settles down when America, which used to have good channels through like the USAID, saying, "Look, guys, if you just shut up, we're not even going to check your weapons. Just don't cross that line there.
Yes.
We're going to give you a new hospital, water purification plants, and we're going to give each of you €80 each a week to buy new clothes."
And just for listeners, Iran was paid huge sums of money to sort of placate them in some way by Obama and before him as well.
Right. I mean, this is messy. This is not something that's being done by, I think, politicians that know the entire facets of what they're involved in. People that have been playing in that space for the last 30 years saying, what are we doing? But they're not getting the news moments in Fox, and their voices aren't being heard by the internal circus that sits around in Mar-a-Lago.
Prediction, what's going to happen?
Trump has to declare an end of the war on his terms. He has to declare that because he wants to move on to Cuba.
And he's going to have to do that within a short time, isn't he?
Probably, I think I'd give him 2 to 3 weeks because they're going to run out of munitions, one. They're going to have more of these ancillary deaths that are horrific. Maybe there'll be suddenly 7 more Americans killed, so he has to reduce that. But it's costing a lot of money. It's not in the defense budget to pay for this. They're going to need a supplemental continuing resolution to pay for what they've expended. And they need it before they invade Cuba.
And you're sure that they're going to invade Cuba?
They have to, because that's on his mark. That's his pinpoint on the map. He said it already.
And will Russia sit by and allow that to happen?
Because it's hemispheric. And the Russians will say, thank you, we'll take Ukraine, so shut up.
And will that have an economic effect if Cuba is attacked?
Probably. I mean, it's havoc. You can't maintain financial stability across the world when there's a war going on. I mean, World War II proved that. The Brits were decimated for over a decade afterwards, just trying to recover, and the Germans worse. You can't do it.
Bernie, thanks for coming into us today. Thank you, and always good to see you. It's Bernie Goldbach with us this morning. We'll take a break back in just a moment.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1-800-938-007. Join the conversation in Tipperary. Contact us through Facebook, Twitter, or email tiptoday@tippfm.com.
Yeah, a lot of compliments coming into us for that piece there with Bernie. Well, Bernie Goldbach is a great resource for us, and we're always glad that he can join us on the programme. Now, speaking of great resources, delighted to be joined by another regular contributor to the show, Peter Ryan. Good morning to you, Peter.
Morning, Fran. How are you this morning?
I'm very well indeed, and good to talk to you. You got in touch with us on behalf of small businesses who are struggling, Peter.
I did, and Fran, yeah, and like to tell you how angry people are getting, that like they would even ask like me to maybe get it highlighted in the like of your program. And what we're on about this time around is the sale of tobacco and vapes and that in the small pubs and shops and that.
Yes, and the recent taxation on that, is that it?
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. Like, I know, like it's €1,000 if just a year to sell cigarettes.
Yeah.
And if you're selling the vapes as well, it's 1,800. Now, I know that people whinge and grumble and say, well, you shouldn't be selling these, people that don't smoke. But people that do smoke, they're going to get them somewhere. So to the black market, that's going to really benefit from all this. And our local shops are going to start disappearing, which we need so badly, like, you know. So
the government is saying that this is, I don't know, it's some part of their ongoing public health strategy to reduce smoking and nicotine use. You're saying that that's sort of, you know...
No, that's crazy. You have to be over 18 to buy tobacco.
Yeah.
Now, if you're 18 or over, God, you should be old enough to make up your own mind whether you'll buy it or not. It shouldn't be up to a poor shopkeeper to tell you, that's bad for your health, so we're not going to sell it or we won't give it to you or whatever.
Right.
Do you know, like, we're adults. We should be treated like adults. And, do you know, like, you can get married at 16 and you can't buy a package of cigarettes or you can't have a drink or whatever. But, like, the laws are crazy in this country as far as I can see it, you know.
And what are the business people telling you about the impact on sales then, Peter?
Like, they just can't afford it. That's what they're telling me. Like, it's €1,800. Like, where did that come out of? Like, in a package of cigarettes, who makes all the money out of it is the government. Like, in a package of 20, I think the government gets €16 or €17 out of it.
Wow.
And by the government putting this levy on, they're going to get more out of it. And, like, it's just absolutely crazy what they're doing.
And if you have a small little shop, a small little outlet, and if you decide that you can't afford to pay these levies, it'll stop people coming in, I guess. I mean,
it will. And you see what this government, the policy seems to be to drive everyone into these filling stations and the one for all kind of places on the road.
Yeah.
So you'll get your cigarettes, your paper, your off license, and all of that. But like, that's not what we want. We want our local shops open, keep them going. They're there for us always when we need a milk or bread. And if you can't go in and buy the cigarettes, if they give up selling the cigarettes, then you're going to have to go somewhere else for cigarettes. So when you go there, you're going to buy your lunch or your tea or your biscuits or something. So they're losing out doubly, like. So they have no choice. They actually don't have a choice but to sell the cigarettes.
And is this typical? I mean, is this? I know that there's a tired old phrase at this point, but is this another blow to rural Ireland because we're going to lose even more of our smaller shops in the villages?
Completely and totally. Like it is. The more pressure they're putting on, the more people are just pulling the plug and saying, look, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. Like, we spoke there, I don't know, in a panel, I think, a while back about the HSE being too big and too out of control.
Yeah.
Like, I have the document here in my hand that one of our local businesses got. And it's the HSE again. That they can walk into your premises and check if you're selling cigarette papers or not even smoke. It's like cigarette papers, for instance. And there's an inspector or 2 or 3 in every area going around doing this. And this is paid for by the HSE.
Yeah, and they have a lot of power around this, I understand. You know, that licenses, for example, won't be issued to certain people, and they can suspend or revoke licenses for violations as well. So they're very powerful where this is concerned.
They are, but the point I'm making is that the HSE should be looking after our health in the sense that not looking after inspecting. There should be a different organisation that would, if they have to tell us all what to do every day of the week and inspect us, there should be a different organisation. It shouldn't be in with the HSE.
And when you see, they might say to you, well, this is looking after your health by, you know, limiting the purchase of these items, which is bad for us. You know?
Yeah, of course they'll say that, but that's not the case. All they're doing is driving it into the black market. And people will realise they can get the tobacco, they can get everything cheaper. So they'll probably smoke more of it.
I think a packet of cigarettes is about €19 now at the moment, is it?
I think so, yeah. At least, yeah. But like the government are the ones getting the big money out of it. And they're still not able to solve the problems, you know. And this thing of closing down small business and putting them under more pressure is not what the way to go.
Right. Well, why aren't we hearing more from politicians giving out about this and talking this
up? There are no politicians there to say it because they're all in government.
Yeah.
Like, that's the problem. They're all now supporting the one. So that fact that up, like, you know. And, like, when you had an opposition, at least they might be opening their mouth or saying something about it. But I don't understand why they're not really kicking up about this. But to just show you, Fran, that people out on the ground, that they come to the local builder to highlight these things for them. Like, it's crazy, you know.
But what does that say about their belief in local representation, Peter, if they're coming to you, and with the greatest of respect to you, but do you know what I mean? If they're coming to you, they must feel not represented.
They're feeling powerless and desperate.
Yeah.
Because there's every day they're getting another letter about something and they're being charged more for this and more for that. And then they have to face us in the shop and tell us, oh, that's gone up another 10, 15, 20 cents, like, you know. And they don't want to do that. These are decent, good people that just want to run local businesses and stop screwing the people, you know.
Right, but they will end up out of business, you figure.
There's no doubt in the world about it. They're pushing it to get rid of all the small businesses. Like €1,800 a year. No little small shop can afford that.
That's to sell the cigarettes and the vapes combined. Leanne was telling me as well, you have some natural remedies, do you?
Well, do you know me? I can solve everything like by the looks of it. And I have a few, all right. I told one now that I'll tell you in a minute. I told it over in another lovely small business over in Bairn, good pub and restaurant as well.
For sure, yeah.
And they still ask me to tell them again every time I go back around the place. There's a little village, in our little village here in Newcastle. There's a place called Bordegowl up that side here in the village.
Mm.
And there's a waterfall up at the top of it. Now, the water from it now comes down from the mountain. It's fairly cold and that. But the cure for alcoholism, Fran, was to the men. It was only for men now because women didn't drink that time, according to all the tales. But it was only for men. So the men have to go to the waterfall and strip off.
Right.
And go in underneath the waterfall 3 times. And every time they went in, Fran, the prayers got longer. So by the time the third session under this waterfall was over anyway, the men just hit off back down the hill a bit, and there was a local shebeen at the bottom. And they were so cold, Fran, and so misfortunate. They just have to go in and get a hot whiskey. It was the life back in themselves. So the whole thing kind of backfire on the regular basis, like, you know. So.
Because I was thinking when you were telling me that, God, I said you need a drink after that, but obviously they took a drink after that.
Yeah,
very good. And is that still spoken of locally? That was a tradition. Is that still?
that was a tradition then.
Yeah.
That happens. Yeah, that's like. Well, we'll say in the local villages then, like you had little shebeens, little shops everywhere.
Yeah, and the shebeen is gone, I suppose.
And the shebeen, well, COVID, I think, was brought back shebeens a bit, all right, but
it certainly did. But you or I would never, you or I wouldn't darken the door. Peter, great to talk to you as always. Thank you. Thank you.
A quick one, like another quick remedy we'll say for them is olive oil and poachine. So you put the poachine into the little bottle of olive oil, and the poachine is meant to cure you, and the olive oil was meant to help it rub it in.
Oh.
And the Epsom salt in the basin of water, and you bathed your feet in that. That was, by all accounts, a great cure as well. So I said, I had 2 alcohols once, so I better throw in the Epsom salt.
Look after yourself, Peter. Thanks very much indeed. Great Peter Ryan there from Newcastle. News and information on the way.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puckon. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puckon. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Good Pat, welcome along to the final hour of Tip Today. Now, this week on the show, we're giving away a €200 voucher for Mr. Menswear, whether it's Debs or confirmations or communions or weddings or race days. Indeed, you'll find the perfect suit, I'm told, shoes and accessories in store in the outlets in Cashel and Care, or indeed online as well. Mr. All lowercase.ie, so it's Mr. all one word and lowercase.ie, and this is your cue to call if you want to get involved. We're looking for a finalist again today. All you have to do is text or WhatsApp Mr. plus your name and your details to us, 083 311 3311. We will announce the finalists before the end of the programme. Now, on yesterday's show, Leanne discussed simple and reliable Irish remedies for everyday ailments. Tracy Hayde was listening to the conversation and joins me now. Tracy, good morning to you.
Good morning, Fran. Thanks for having me on.
Lovely to talk to you again, Tracy. Are you into these kind of remedies?
Yeah, well, I suppose when I was young, they were always used, like the flat 7-Up when you're sick. That's another one. And then one my mother and my grandmother used to use was if you have a sick stomach, cooled boiled water.
God, yeah, now you're taking me back
and
memories.
It works.
Huh? Yeah.
It really works if your stomach is off. Rather than medication, I think it's even better.
And did you go for the used potatoes for the warts as well that Leanne was talking to us about?
Yes, I did. When I was a child, my hands were covered, and my grandmother told me to do the potato. Basically, you cut it in half, and you rub it on your warts, and then bury it. And it worked. All my warts went away.
So you buried the potato afterwards?
Yeah.
It's incredible. And it worked for you?
It did. Well, I don't know if it was that, but all my warts went away.
Isn't it just amazing? And do you think, are we losing all of these remedies, do you think?
In some ways, probably, yeah, because people aren't using them as much. But, like, I still do the 7-Up and, say, the boiled water remedies and, like, even the potato, I remember it.
Yeah.
You know, so some of them I still remember. Like, my partner used to use cobwebs with cuts, apparently, when he was young.
Do you know, I heard about that yesterday, but I hadn't heard about it before at all. How does that work?
I don't know, he said it helps knit the cut together, so he put it on it and then bandaged over it.
Right, so you put the cobweb on the cut?
Yeah.
Right, isn't that interesting?
Yeah,
and it helps the healing process, or?
Yeah. And then another one my partner uses is lemon juice on everything from an actual lemon. Like, if he has a cut, he'll put lemon juice on it.
Ouch.
Because it will, I know, yeah.
It would sting, yeah.
But it is an antiseptic and antibacterial.
Isn't that very interesting?
Apparently.
Yeah.
But it is good for cleaning, like, as well.
For cleaning what now?
Like, if you're cleaning a surface, it helps disinfect
the
surface part.
Lemon juice?
lemon juice.
Right.
Same with vinegar.
And what, you dilute it in water, obviously, and...
I would imagine so.
Yeah. It's incredible, yeah.
And like,
I was just thinking, wouldn't a book about this be very interesting if it was all researched and gathered?
It would, definitely.
Now, probably a whole load of people will come and say, but sure, there are such books and they're all out there as well. But I don't know of any, but, you know.
Nor do I.
So let's do it. We might do a dual publication of some kind, Tracy. You never know. Things are well with you, Tracy?
Yes, they're very good, yeah.
Good. Well, good to talk to you.
Thankfully.
Good to talk to you as always. And thanks very much, Tracy. Thank you. Good morning to you. 1800 938 007. Time for this.
Legal discussion on Tip today is brought to you in association with Lynch Solicitors Clonmel, on the web at lynchsolicitors.ie and at divorceineireland.com.
Rosemary Lynch from Lynch Solicitors, even with me in studio today. Good morning to you, Rosemary.
Good morning, Fran.
God, I'm stumbling over words and everything today. You're going to talk to us about farming and the Fair Deal scheme, and always controversial, isn't it?
It's quite controversial, yeah, and for a number of reasons. Some of them we'll dig into today. But I suppose the Fair Deal scheme, if you look at the premise of it, it is supposedly supposed to support a person that needs nursing home support.
Yes.
Where the person in question pays a contribution towards their care, and the HSE or the state will pick up the balance. Where it becomes controversial is where people may be cash poor but assets rich. All right.
So typical of farming. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And also, you know, in a farming context and in a business context, there's always an intergenerational element to it. They always want to, you know, the farming clients always want to pass on land to their near and dearest, right? But sometimes you get into a sticky situation where they might have a small, by relative standards, a small farm. They're reliant on the income to support them. So they don't necessarily want to transfer away the farm and transfer away their income, but then they're worried that if they don't do that within 5 years of needing nursing home support, that that asset basically will be taken into account in the assessment, and any equity in the family home will be eaten up.
I thought there was some new rules and regulations around that, though, wasn't there?
Yeah, there are, and it was a real welcome introduction. Now, what I would say to you is I would agree with the IFA and their recent proposals to government, where they said it hasn't gone far enough, right? So what they introduced in recent times was that in certain circumstances you can cap the assessment on the farm or a business, all right? So what that basically means, if we go down to the nuts and bolts of the financial assessment.
Yes.
So when you're making this application, and now bear in mind that this is a 36-page application, right? It's kind of like applying for a loan. In essence, it is applying for a loan, right? Everything that you'd expect your, lender to be interested in, that's what you kind of need to cover. And actually, on that point, it has happened before that, a husband making an application for a wife was unaware of one bank account. Good on the wife.
I see. Running away money, is it? Yes.
But definitely, it was just like, if you think about it, the person making the application is probably quite stressed out, right?
Yeah.
They're in a kind of an emergency scenario, right? They may or may not know everything about the person's assets, right? So, it goes down to not just bank accounts, but, did the person have any shares? Everything that would fall into, assessable income, cash assets and non-cash assets, right? So best case scenario, you have somebody that's there to facilitate the application, i.e. the person that needs the nursing home care. But if you don't have access to that person because of mental debility or something like that, it gets a bit difficult, all right? And if you do accidentally not disclose something in your form, all right, what the nursing support scheme does after that person dies is they ask for a full copy of everything that you're submitting to probate. And as we know, if you're in a probate scenario, again, obviously revenue want to know what is in this person's estate. If there's any difference between what the person has submitted on the fair deal application and on the probate application, they'll look to claw back some funds there.
Wow.
So it's very, very, very important in a fair deal context that, you know, the person has somebody that they know that would be ultimately making that application for them, aware of what their assets are if they're in that kind of emergency scenario. So again, just going back to, I suppose, the nuts and bolts of it, as I said, the assessable income, right? So they look at pensions, social welfare benefits, rental, all of that. And if you're an individual, you make an 80% contribution, all right, towards your care based on your assessable income, which sounds like a lot.
Sounds like an awful lot.
And indeed, it can be a lot if you think about it, right? One query I get a lot with Fair Deal is, I've put my loved one into Fair Deal and I thought the scheme covers everything. But yet there's certain services that the nursing home provides, like specialised treatments, that aren't covered under the scheme, right? So if 80% of your income is going towards your Fair Deal contribution, and there's certain types of treatments that you may want to avail of that aren't covered under the scheme, that's coming out of the 20% that you've retained. The other things, like, you know, some nursing homes provide hairdressing services, things like that.
The
you
extras.
Know what I mean? Yeah, the extras, they're not covered under the scheme.
Yeah, is there also a percentage of the assets, the value of the assets per year, is it on top of the 80%, is that it?
Yeah. So it's kind of twofold. The first one is the income, right? And as I said, 80% if you're an individual, or 40% if you're in a couple, right?
Yes.
So a couple is someone who's married, obviously, but it can also be kind of like a cohabitant, right? It's a life partner that you've lived with for 3 years. So in that circumstance, 40% of the combined income. So that's step one in the financial assessment. Step two in the financial assessment then is looking at, you, as you said, at assets, right? So there's two types of assets under the financial assessment. The first is the cash assets. So think about savings, shares, things like that, all right? And the second is non-cash assets, which we spend most of our time thinking about, right? It's the family home, it's farmland, it's secondary property, things like that. And with those two, the assessment is 7.5% of the value of those, all right, is put towards.
Right. How fair in the Fair Deal scheme is that, though? Because again, you could be very much cash poor and have, I don't know, 200 acres of land or something.
Yeah, well, what I've seen is it can result in quite a bit of unfairness in the farming context, right? As I said, you know, a lot of the time, what happens is that the farming client would have wanted to have transferred it to, you know, their successor. They have an ultimate successor in mind, but they haven't gone through the mechanism to do it, right? So the recent introduction, the positive change, let's say, as I said, the IFA says it doesn't go far enough, and I would agree, is that similar to the cap on a family home, right, where after 3 years it will roll out of the assessment, so it will no longer be counted as an asset. That's automatic on the family home, all right? But they've made provision on farming or business assets that you can, if you appoint an ultimate successor and you meet all of the conditions and criteria, that you can also apply a cap to the farm, all right? The issues that I've come across and some of the unfairness there, right, is that if you think about it, we're dealing with people that are, you know, later on in life.
Yes.
All right. They may not have been actively farming it. All right. So in order to go through this 3-year cap for the farm, you do need to have been actively farming it for 3 of the last 5 years, or your ultimate successor will need, or your successor will need to have done that, or your partner will need to have done that. So what you'll find in Ireland is that in some farming families or in some contexts, you know, you might have a bachelor farmer that doesn't have a successor in mind, that may have leased the land on a long lease and is generating an income from it. They won't qualify for that. It has to be, you know, actively farmed by the person themselves or one of those relatives, as I said. So if it's to a third party, you're out.
If you've signed over at this point. I mean, if you have chosen your succession path and you've signed over, what about that?
Yeah, kind of three scenarios arise under that, really. So the first one is, as I said, you haven't signed it over and you're trying to fit in within this rule. In my opinion, it's not a great position to be in.
Yeah.
The second one is you have signed it over, right? But you haven't signed it over within the 5-year look back period. Okay.
Okay, so that's in there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So what they say is an asset that they can assess, right, is anything that you currently own or that you've transferred in the previous 5 years if you haven't transferred for value.
Okay.
All right. Because if you think about it, if you've transferred for value, you have the asset in a different form. You have it as a cash asset, hopefully.
Yes.
So most farming clients, if they have done the transfer and they're in that scenario, they're kind of caught by that, right? So what you still need to do is you still need to appoint a successor and go down that route. But instead of, let's say, it being caught for the full term, you'll only be caught for a limited amount of it. But it can still lead to a difficult scenario where the person's means or the person's assets are being assessed as if they still own that land, right? So then they may need to rely on the ancillary loan that the HSE offer, right? And that's basically just a charge on the family home, all right? People sometimes think of that's actually, oh God, I have to do that. I have to put a charge on my property. You don't have to do it. It's optional. But it's only when the assessment is in such a way that you can't possibly pay your contribution because your assets, you're as I said, kind of asset rich and cash poor. So they need to rely then on the ancillary loan, which just defers your cost of care. So they still get the refund, they still get paid, but they don't get paid until the person's died. And the issues and some of the unfairness that I see in that one, right, is that you only have 12 months from the date of death, all right, to repay. And if you think about it, like most fixed assets, like most properties, if you go to an auctioneer, well, probably today because it's a sunny day, it would be all right. But if you had gone to him in January or February and said, I need to sell this property ASAP, he would have said, hold off until the weather's better. All right. So you kind of have a ticking clock then over your head to sell a property. And what can happen is sometimes you won't realise as much from the sale as you should have, which means the beneficiaries don't get as much as they should have.
See, it sounds to me like planning and financial advice is absolutely key to this, way ahead of time.
Exactly. And it's something, again, not to be adding in too many things to our wills procedure, but it is something that, you know, when you're talking about wills with a client, you do have that discussion if they're of a certain age. You know, when they're saying, well, I want to leave this to leave an acre to my son, for example, and I want to do this and I want to do that. And you're kind of saying, well, you know, there is a CGT relief available for an acre to your son. Do you not want to do it now? Because if you don't do it now, you might be ultimately paying for it in the end via the fair deal. And the worst case scenario with fair deal is that a person has to actually start selling assets.
Yes.
And or that the person who they wanted to benefit doesn't ultimately benefit under the will because there's a fair deal charge that needs to be paid off.
So what is the current situation? I mean, are farmers struggling with this in terms of qualifying, I guess, and the cap as well? Is that proving to be an issue?
Yeah, it is. I mean, in terms of an introduction, this new cap for the farmer has only been in place in relative recent times, right? So there's still a lot of ambiguity. There's still things cropping up. For example, Fran, you know, just today the question came in, well, you know, these new rental rules coming in place into March 1st just came in, which basically grants 6-year security of tenure. Yeah. So the question was, well, how does that work with fair deal? Because under fair deal, right, you have to sell your property potentially to pay off the loan within the 12 months. So what if I have a tenant that I can't evict And what if I can't get them out?
Oh, that's very interesting.
Yeah,
I hadn't even thought about
and
that.
all of those. That's the thing with changes of legislation. Sometimes they impact different areas that you don't initially thought. And I thought it was a really good query actually, that hit my desk. So thankfully they've carved out the Fair Deal property, but you can just see that these little changes and the little nuances as you go, they can kind of, result in things that you hadn't thought through in advance. But the most frequent one, unfortunately, causing people issues, and the part that I would say is unfair, is if a client has gone through the bother of going in and getting their affairs in order and making that transfer, all right, but then unfortunately, for a reason that they haven't anticipated, right? It's not like they've done it and that they're, unwell at the time.
Yeah.
But then they're caught by that 5-year look back period. That's one of the things that the IFA is saying that they want to reduce, all right, to a 3-year period or less.
Right. There's no doubt that Fair Deal is a crucial social support right across the board, but there is still a lot more to be ironed out, you think, yeah?
There's a lot more to be earned out, and I personally think the look back period is it penalises people, right? Like we're actively telling people through the reliefs available for farmers to do these transfers, right? I don't think that they then should be somewhat penalised if they haven't done it at the right time.
Yes.
Having made those steps, which, let's face it is a big step to take. You are ultimately divesting yourself of your source of income, or of the land that you may have farmed for 30 or 40 years. So I don't think that they should be penalised in that way.
All right. Somebody's saying, I live with my mum in the family home. If my mum had to go into a home, I suppose it's a fair deal, would we have to sell the family home?
Yeah, see, that's an interesting one, and actually one that cropped up recently. You can defer in very limited circumstances, right, this payback within 12 months. Now, remembering for the listener that it may or may not be the case that your mother needs to avail of the ancillary loan. It may or may not be the case, depending on her income and her assets, that she may need to put a charge on the property, right? But let's assume that she has had to do that. You can defer the 12-month period if you have, in very limited circumstances, a vulnerable person or a dependent person living in the property.
Yes.
But that's not a given, all right? And that needs to be looked at in advance, because if you don't make that payment within the 12 months and it was necessitated and they wouldn't waive it, interest starts to accrue from that at 0.0219% per day. So it's something that you need to not assume will apply to you. Do the investigations, check it out and make sure.
You were talking about the extra charges. One listener says, my dad was in a nursing home for nearly 5 weeks until God called him home. They charged €80 a week for laundry, even though my dad was bedbound and only wore a polo shirt. So these are the extras you were referring to, yeah.
Yeah. Well, first of all, my condolences. And yeah, that is the experience of a lot of people. They assume that once you have done all of the, I wouldn't say palaver because that's a bit unfair, but once you've gone through this 36-page form and you've ticked every box and you've got all the financial statements, that you're kind of have everything sorted, whereas actually there's a lot of costs that people don't anticipate that do start cropping up. Right. And as I said, if a person only has access to 20% maybe of their income, it will fall on family members.
With the lobbying from the farming organisations, will we see further changes, do you think?
Well, I hope so, right? But the other thing that I really hope and that I think is crucial is I've yet to meet a client, right, that I'm talking about an enduring power of attorney or their will or anything else that says to me, yeah, I'm happy to go into a nursing home. Right, they always say I want to be supported at home for as long as possible.
Yeah, of course.
There's a load of research in Japan, Sweden and loads of other places that basically says that from a mental health perspective, for all involved in that kind of process, it's better to do home support. Now, the government has been talking about a scheme that would be similar to the Fair Deal scheme, but in a home care context. And I think that is absolutely crucial. There's a lot of people, that are going into nursing homes that may, if there was the correct supports in place, because the current support, it's discretionary and it's limited. If there's the correct supports in place for home care instead, wouldn't be in a nursing home.
All right. One of our listeners wants to drag you into a political row. Just wondering, what do you think about this, that people pay their taxes all of their lives, and particularly elderly people, they deserve to be looked after afterwards? I presume you go along with that, would you?
Oh, I'd wholeheartedly agree. Obviously, to play devil's advocate, but there has to there was a revenue report back in 2020, and it just detailed the cost of care,
yes,
right? And it is
with an aging population.
Yeah,
and all that,
it's massive, right? But do I think that our tax money, having spent tax and paid tax all their life, should be put towards the elderly? Absolutely, I do.
All right. If people want advice from you or from your colleagues, Rosemary,
yeah, be happy to hear from them.
All right. So if you want to Google Lynch Solicitors, all of the contacts will be there. Good to see you as always, Rosemary.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much indeed. We'll take a break. We're back with more. It's 11:30.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the Expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high roof vans, long wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Welcome back to Tip Today. It's rarely we get a great result within the duration of the programme, but anyway, good news, because we were speaking to Senator Garda Hearn in the first hour of the programme, and he was raising some serious concerns regarding the decision by TUSLA to discontinue funding for St Bernard's Therapeutic Fostering Support Service in Featherton. We spoke to foster parent Anne, and we spoke to Lorraine as well, and they spoke very eloquently and very strongly about losing that particular service. But anyway, a statement from TUSLA, and just a portion of that. In 2025, as part of a service review, there were challenges identified in the commissioning of St Bernard's service which needed to be addressed. The decision of local management was to cease the commissioning of this service. In retrospect, there was not appropriate consultation and engagement with foster carers, and we are deeply sorry for the concern and worry this has caused foster carers in the southeast. As a result, from a recent meeting with foster carers, we listened carefully to their opinions and concerns. It was clear how strongly they feel about St Bernard's service and the importance of the support for them and the children in their care. So the good news, therefore, local management has taken the decision to maintain service provision with St Bernard's for 2026 with no disruption to current supports. The local team will engage with foster carers throughout 2026 in the co-design of supports to be provided in the following year of 2027. So that's pretty good news there, and we're delighted with that. Now, speaking of good news, Laura Richards, mother of three, left a 13-year corporate career to create Posted Local, an app and a web platform bringing Clonmel's events, jobs and local businesses straight to your doorstep. And I'm delighted to say that Laura is with me in studio. Good morning to Laura.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Fran.
Yeah, and you're very welcome indeed. Will you tell us about Posted Local? What exactly is it?
Absolutely. So Posted Local is an app designed essentially to bring towns back to life. So it showcases on the app local businesses, jobs, events and courses. So we went live last October, so you can download the app in the Play and App Store. And we also have a web app on postedlocal.ie. So basically the idea behind Posted Local was there's just that disconnection piece at a local level. There's loads happening, but where do you find the information? So I just felt after COVID there was, I suppose, an extra bit of disconnect. And for me, I see on the ground every day of the week amazing businesses, and it's not that businesses aren't doing good or that, you know, they're not thriving. Doors are closing because essentially people aren't visible. there's a lot on about a lot of talk about supporting local and whatnot, but it's really difficult to support local when you don't know what is on your doorstep. So I suppose that was the idea behind Posted Local, and the drive to pack in my safe, secure, pensionable job to invest my own money essentially into the app.
And fair play. I mean, that was very brave of you to do that.
Absolutely, yeah. My 3 a.m. wake ups are a reminder of it. But look, do you know what? It was a very brave move. I have three sets of eyes on me at home. My kiddies, so I suppose that's a big drive. I suppose they are my driving force. So
I'm sure they are indeed. What was the corporate gig?
So I worked in software, believe it or not, across the road in a fantastic company for nearly 13 years. It brought me all over the world, really, from the UK over to Europe. Managed a team in France at one point, and kind of the last 4 years with them I spent managing projects in Australia. So it was fabulous. It was brilliant. And I suppose with that, I realised the power of software.
Of course, yeah. But you're able to bring all of that experience then to this.
Absolutely. And to be honest, the piece for me is it's just the local. I'm so proud genuinely of every business that's sitting on Posted Local, because I suppose I know now what it takes to follow your dream, to be brave, to leave the safety. Like, God, I loved that day a month when the couple of grand landed in my bank account, and those days aren't there anymore. It's all going out. So I have huge, I suppose, respect for businesses. From the outside, it can look like businesses are thriving, but I'm there, I'm on the ground every day of the week meeting businesses. I know what it takes to open a door. So for me, giving those businesses, I'm on here talking about Posted Local, but really I'm talking about the businesses that are on there. Like, that's where the passion is. It's getting eyes on those businesses. And like this morning, I brought you in a lovely treat.
I just can't wait to indulge myself after 12. Will you tell us about that? Because it's a relatively new business as well.
They opened their doors this morning. So Woke Coffee Shop, they're up by Thomas Street, the carry out in Clonmel car park. So just near the train station, a lovely commuter spot. So like that, it's getting eyes on those businesses and letting everybody know that they exist.
So it's a coffee shop and
it's a coffee trailer. So essentially they've fabulous treats up there and a beautiful coffee as well. So good luck to Sue on that venture.
And isn't it great to see that? I mean, people starting out, even though the costs of business now are through the roof.
It's terrifying. But like that, I think people need to remember as well, a lot of what I hear on the ground is, like say the school drops on a Monday morning. Oh, I wish I knew that was on at the weekend, or oh, I wish someone told me about that. And there's so much between websites and social media. People are giving their all to throw the information out there, but it is getting lost in the noise and the chaos online.
So how do we get in touch with Posted Local, and how do we involve ourselves with it?
Absolutely. So Posted Local, I suppose, I'll backstep a little bit. For me, the inclusivity piece is so important, that everybody can access Posted Local. It's all self-managed. I suppose kind of rewinding back maybe 15, 16 years ago, in my final year in business, I had to do work placement, and I done it in the Adult Literacy Agency, NALA, the National Adult Literacy Agency on Gardner Street in Dublin. And I went in and it was all like, Excel spreadsheets, this and that. And I just thought, I'm not spending the next 6 months, even though it's paid and I was quite delighted with it. I'm not spending the next 6 months looking at this computer screen. So I went up to the CEO at the time and I just said, look, please, just let me do something that's a bit more fun. So they said, look, we have our 30th anniversary coming up, and we let you take charge of the event. You can manage it and whatnot. The patron of our company is hosting it in her house. And I said, well, that's amazing. They said, so the patron is Mary McAleese, and it's in the Orson Oak sound.
Nice one.
Okay. So look, I spent 6 months up there, and I learned, 1 in 6 adults struggle with literacy difficulties. And if you fast forward to today, so I kind of feel like there's never anything lost, because right now, it's not just numbers and reading. Digital literacy is now a huge thing. So for me, Posted Local is that inclusive piece. I engaged with the adult literacy agency, and I let them know about Posted Local. I wanted to include them to make sure I was creating an app that was inclusive for everyone, so everybody can come on there and take a look. I ended up in the coalition for adult literacy as a result.
Very
so
good.
I am really, that's something that's quite important to me, that everybody, even if you feel like, oh, I'm not great with technology or whatnot, for me Posted Local is that inclusive piece. So if granny or granddad are looking for something to do, or there's someone lonely and they don't know how to get back and connect with the community, I would highly encourage that if you have grandkids or a neighbour next door, put Posted Local on people who maybe are disconnected from the community's phone. It's free to download, it's free to access,
So
it's free to view.
download the app.
Absolutely, download the app.
And then it's very simple to access then.
Exactly, it's like you can just click of a button and you can see everything. So I would highly encourage that.
And what will you see? Obviously information about businesses, but I mean, do you do stuff about social events, for example?
Yeah, exactly. Probably our most popular section is events. So you'll even see this weekend there is so much happening in Clonmel for Mother's Day. From the Yoga Yard in Clonmel have beautiful events on. V-Flow Pilates have a beautiful event on out in Feathertown Park. There is so much. So that's probably the most lucrative part of Posted Local. But people want to know what's happening. They want to be connected. And you know what my favourite thing is, Fran, is if you look on the event section in Posted Local, the businesses who put themselves up there, there's lovely lines in there like, come by yourself, bring a friend along, everybody welcome. And to me, that's the part that's so important about Posted Local.
Very good indeed. How does it work for you to make a profit then? I mean, if I have an event happening this coming weekend and I only want to advertise that, can I do that, for example?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we have different models. So there's a subscription model for businesses who want to sit up there and let everyone know about their whether it's a business, job, event or course.
And for that to be always there, is that
Exactly.
it? Yeah.
So you can subscribe. It's all self-managed, like I said, but equally if you want to just put one single post up, it runs in a 30-day cycle. So another thing to me that was really important is that it's not a listing board and there's no way to get rid of old information, so everything's on a 30-day cycle. So it's relevant and it's up to date.
So there's not clutter there.
Exactly, yeah. We're trying to avoid that online noise. As a mother of 3, it's just everything is so busy, and for everyone life is so busy. You want something that's clear, and that's the whole point. Posted Local is a unified platform. It brings towns to life. So instead of trying to traipse around and find something, you go to Posted Local, your information is there. So if you're a business, you're on Posted Local if you want to be seen.
Fantastic idea. And are people flocking to you at this point?
Yeah, I'm hoping now after today, Fran, that I'm just, I'll have to put out my own job vacancies on Posted Local.
No pressure or anything on us.
No pressure. But look, I mean, it's definitely something that's growing. And what I've noticed even in the last couple of weeks, so we're 6 months live at the moment, and I have noticed businesses who have been kind of keeping eyes on it are starting to come around to it. So
I presume this is something you could expand then, is it?
Absolutely, yeah. So we're dipping our toes into Thurles and Dungarvan at the moment.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, the power of software is it's so scalable. So look, I'm taking a grassroots approach at the moment, probably because I have such a grow and a passion for Clonmel, and I really want to help lift the town and promote. I mean, like there's 1,400 registered businesses in Clonmel. So we are the largest town in Tipp, meaning I think there's like 17,000 jobs we account for, which in Tipperary in total is 22% of the all the jobs in County Tipperary. So there's so much happening in Clonmel. So for me, I really want to get it right here, and then I'll start to dip my toe out into other towns.
It all sounds so exciting, and many congratulations to you for being brave enough to just go for this, which is fantastic. So download the app. That's
absolutely, that's the message.
Posted Local. That's all one word.
It is, yeah.
All right, many congrats, Laura. Lovely to see you today. Thanks very much, and thanks for the goodies as well.
You're so welcome.
I can't wait. We're going to take a break. Back in just a few moments.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1800 938 007.
And you're very welcome back to Tipp Today, 1800 938 007. Now, numerous incidents of antisocial behaviour at 2 busy public buildings in Clonmel have resulted in the continued presence of security staff. Now, Councillor John Fitzgerald spoke to us about this a few weeks ago, but Councillor Richie Malloy raised the issue of security at the Clonmel Library and the motor tax office in the town again recently, and he said saying that members of the public have asked him why it was needed, and he joins me in studio. You're getting queries about the necessity of these security people.
Good morning to you, Fran, and your listeners. And yes, a lot of the public have been raising concerns, wondering why is there security at those two particular buildings. But I checked with the council there this morning before I came over, and actually there was a review done on the security there at the motor tax office. So that's actually been lifted now. There is nobody there as such.
Right.
At the because I mean like in fairness to Councillor Fitzgerald when he raised it at the district meeting, there is a cost to providing this extra security, and the point he was making, which I felt was valid, is that private businesses and that mightn't have the luxury of hiring someone to provide security, but at the same time I suppose you have to be conscious there is a duty of care on the council for their staff.
And were there incidents that prompted the use of?
There was. No, I think one of the incidents in the motor tax office is going to be before the courts.
Okay, so we can't talk about that. Yeah,
but there was a number of incidents, and sometimes I suppose local authority staff do face anger from the public for one. It might be nothing to do with motor tax. It could be something totally different.
Yeah.
So that was the reason I suppose the security was put in there in the first place. But our question at the meeting was, how long was it going to go on forever and a day, or what was the story? So we were told then that there would be a review of that, and as I say, since last week, as far as I know, the motor tax office has gone back to the normal way it always was. I mean, the staff in there do have the protection of the windows and that, those kind of...
For the protective glass and
so on.
And what about the library?
No,
then?
the library is still under review, but the security is still at the library, and it'll be left like that. There's constant reviews, but the feeling is that they need the security there at the moment, and I suppose the library in particular is a very open place, and the staff have to be protected. There isn't the same type of...
The irony of it, Richie, is that both premises, though, are within like a very short walk to the Garda station.
They are, and that was the point. Like, you're right, the Garda station is in the middle of those two particular buildings. But I suppose when an incident happens, how quickly can the Gardaí respond? And I mean, there is always the issue all the time there about the lack of resources.
Yes.
And we still have... The numbers still in Clonmel are not great. I mean, we couldn't say that the Garda numbers in Clonmel are great because we have a new superintendent there. There's a new committee has replaced the JPC, it's Community Partnership. That had its kind of inaugural meeting there recently, but everybody at that particular inaugural meeting was making the same point that the Garda numbers are still very small across the county of Tipp.
Was there any indication of the cost of the security that was provided?
No, we didn't actually get the cost, so I don't know how costly it was to put on that security. I know with the local authority, they probably feel that staff, to protect your staff and duty of care is probably their top concern, but we haven't really. But I'm sure the costs would be.
Is there any way the security could emerge from existing staff, if you know what I mean?
I off the top of my head, I doubt it really. I presume like you would need someone totally separate to the
specialised,
staff. You would, because in the motor tax office, I was only in there myself the other day, and it's quite busy there. Because while you have all the facility to do your tax online, but I think a lot of people prefer to go into the motor tax office, pay their tax and get the forms. Anyone older mightn't have the technology at home, and I'm all the time pushing that they keep these one-to-one contacts with the public rather than make everything online. Because there's such a trend now. Even if you ring the local authority today now, it's generally speaking you get the voice to say we'll put you on hold. And I'm always thinking that confuses people, press this, press that. Or email, like a lot of organisations want you to email, go on the websites. But there's a certain catchment of people that just doesn't suit. And that's where you do need the face-to-face.
Only yesterday I was trying to get through to my Wi-Fi suppliers, and my God almighty. I mean, really, I could have gotten through to Donald Trump here
quicker. And that seems to be the trend of a lot of organisations now.
So annoying indeed. Is this part of a new departure for councils? Are you going to start looking at costs and examining what?
Well, I suppose you're always conscious, as a local council, people always say, what are you doing with all the money that you're taking in? There was a meeting last night there, indeed, of the bids the bids team had a meeting there last night, and there were a lot of local businesses at that particular meeting, and they'd be given, I suppose, ideas how to improve the town, and a lot of the ideas would be kind of saying, what are the county council doing? But I mean, in fairness to the council, they do a lot of work. Street cleaning. I remember some official remarked to me one time, do they ever wonder how the streets are so spotless on a Monday morning? Somebody has to do that. So that's a costly exercise, and the general public sometimes do it with littering can be a big issue. You have stuff dumped everywhere, like laneways in Clonmel. Now you'd get a lot of calls from constituents kind of saying there's rubbish dumped up such a laneway. That has to be taken up by the county council. Invariably 2 weeks later, you'll find the same problem.
It's back again. How was that bids meeting last night, Richie? Was it a positive meeting?
I felt very positive, Fran. I would say that the everybody really at that meeting, and I'm sure there was 100 to 200 at it really, of different businesses were in favour of giving this bids a try, because it'll be for 5 years. It's a cost to businesses, but for smaller businesses the cost doesn't seem to be too big, and I think everybody I spoke to there anyway were in favour of give it a go to try and get Clonmel back.
And what it will be examined after a period of years, is that?
Yeah, after 5 years. Then, as Noel Buckley kind of pointed out, if people weren't happy after 5 years, they had the opportunity to vote again.
Right.
And
of course, as you know, the big crib there is that people are saying, well, hold on now, we're paying our rates anyway and we deserve to be looked after. And
absolutely. But I suppose the thing is, this will create this fund of money, from what I can see anyway. It'll create an extra fund of money that can be used to promote the town, and matched funding. They read out, I don't know how many grants are available there, out probably in Europe and so on, but to get any of these grants you must come up with matched funding, and I suppose they'll use some of this extra.
But of course,
money.
the secret is getting the right person to head this up.
I wouldn't envy the person's job, the CEO, whoever the CEO will be in this, because that won't be easy.
Before I let you go, we're all talking about the way the cost of fuel, particularly in the last couple of weeks, have gone right through the roof, putting on your carers management hat on you. I mean, the effect on carers.
It's shocking, Fran, really. I mean, it's unbelievable how all the prices at the pumps rose within nearly 24 hours after the first missiles landed in Iran. The pumps seem to react to it, which seemed very unfair. I mean, I've seen price of $1.95 a litre for diesel almost within 24 hours. But from a carer's point of view, the costs of diesel and petrol are one thing, but the heating, anyone that's minding elderly people at home, or indeed children with special needs, like, your heating costs are enormous anyway. But this has driven kerosene.
I just heard the other day a €500 fill has now gone to €800.
I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, I think the government again will really have to look at that. That protest that went on recently to bring in a special. I know they don't like these ideas of once-off funds, but I mean, there's big justification there now for it, because the carers allowance is still $280. You think again of the people on the half rate carers, they're on something like $140. I mean, that they're going to feel it very difficult now.
So there needs to be intervention.
I think, even though the government have refused up to now to give this extra one-off payment, but there's surely justification there now because of what's happened with the war.
But what you're hearing alone, there's justification.
Definitely. I mean, anyone that's ringing the centre now, they were under pressure before, but they're under double that pressure now. And I feel the government should. Even I listened to one of your the haulage man there this morning, said 65 cents going in taxes, and the government almost gaining more money now because of the increase. Surely, but God, that in itself could be stopped as a kind of a short term.
Well, they seem to be coming to some sort of agreement with the road haulage people, and we'll see what happens where that's concerned. Richie, thanks for coming in. It was good to talk to you. Thank you. Councillor Richie Malloy with us this morning. The qualifier in our Mr. competition is JP Griffin from Anacarty. Well done to you, JP. You're into that big draw for the €200 this coming Friday. Johnny rang this morning. He said, you were talking about people getting wet at bus stops, Fran. He said, people are gone too soft. I used to walk to Mass in the rain, hail or snow. It's a good thing we don't live in Russia. We'd be freezing then for sure, says Johnny to us this morning. That's it from me. Leanne produced. Stephen has a time tunnel on the lunchtime show, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Look after yourselves. Bye-bye.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puckon, main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.